Welcome back. My name is Cédric Marin, and I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer at Holt Immigration Law. Thank you so much for joining me for the live Q&A. You can ask me any question about immigrating to Canada. Apologize that I'm late, but listen, let's get right to it. I see there's already a lot of questions in the comments. That's fantastic. All right, so let's get right to it. No posting me where you're from, no introduction, none of that. Let's try to answer as many questions as possible. And as a little warning, keep in mind this is just general legal information. It's not legal advice, right? So most of the time, I don't know the specific programs. I don't know your nationality. I don't know any of this, right? So it's just general information. If you want advice from a Canadian immigration lawyer, please reach out. All right, let's get right to it. So Ibrahim says, "Hi Cédric, thanks for the work you are doing. 2 questions, please. I recently got an ITA and submitted my EAPR. So Ibrahim applied for express entry and is in the process of getting his permanent residence. Will I be asked to give biometrics again, even if I had given them for previous TRV?" So great question, Ibrahim. There's actually a biometric checker, IRCC, where you can check to see whether or not your biometrics are still valid, which is a fantastic tool for you. And sorry guys, just a brief warning. Just want to answer questions. I'm just going to be taking note of the time here so I can add them to the comment section below of the video. All right, Ibrahim, let's go take a look here at the biometric checker. I just need to link my screen here. The short answer is if you're giving them within the last 10 years, you're not going to have to give them again, which is just the general rule that applies. But I definitely encourage you to go to this biometric checker. There we go. So, and you can go ahead here, accept, and you can enter your personal information, and it's going to go ahead to check your biometrics if they're still valid. Now, a lot of people also, there's the biometric part of it, but there's also, if you're inside Canada, so if you've applied for express entry in the Canadian experience class, there's a security screening. And for some cases, actually, well, a lot of things change with COVID, there's exemptions and whatnot, but generally speaking, you're gonna have to go in and give your fingerprints to the RCMP to do a background check. So we have the biometrics requirement, and then you actually have the security screening. They're 2 different elements, both involve fingerprints. But if you're asking specifically about biometrics, take a look here at the website. You can enter your name, your UCI, and it's going to tell you whether or not your biometrics are still valid. There might also be exemptions with COVID that are still in effect regarding biometrics, but if you've given them within the last 10 years for the TRV, the biometrics should still be valid. And keep in mind, for the security clearance, you might also have to give your biometrics. All right, we don't necessarily answer the questions in order, but I'm trying to pick the questions which are applicable to the most people possible. And as a brief reminder, our firm is Holt Immigration Law. We've been updating our website, which is really fantastic. So go ahead here and take a look. You can see we have now sections on how to immigrate, right? Provincial nominees, express entry, permanent residence. If you want to visit, right? So a study permit, applying for a super visa for your parents or grandparents to come visit you to stay in Canada for up to 2 years. That's also possible, right? We also have family sponsorship. So learning how to sponsor a spouse, learning how to sponsor to reunite with dependent children, and so on. I tend to focus on applications with permanent residency, work and study. And really my focus is getting legal help with reconsideration requests, judicial review, and refused applications. So take a look at our website, speak to a lawyer. You can find me at the bottom. Here I am with the areas of focus, express entry, a big part. And then when you go and click for the console, you can actually see my time. So what's neat about me is that I'm actually teleworking abroad, which is great. So if you're inside Toronto, I can speak to you nice and early in the morning before you go to work during the weekdays when you're at your freshest and able to give your best for your immigration application. If you're outside Canada, so let's say you're in India, you can actually see here that, let's see, popping up here, Delhi. Looks like the time zone is not popping up, but let's take a look here at Melbourne. So if you're abroad, you can see here that I offer more convenient times in the evenings and during the day. And if you're inside Canada, you can see that I offer times in the morning. So I am teleworking abroad, which makes it that I'm available in the morning and I'm available if you're outside Canada on your time zone. All right, let's continue. Let's get right to the next question. So Cyril has a great question saying, "Hi Cédric, I'd like to change to visitor visa to a study permit inside Canada. I need to complete a short-term course before applying to a DLI. Besides English courses, are there any other options?" I don't think I completely understand your question, Cyril, but what I encourage you to do is go over to the Immigration and Refugee Protection Regulations, and you're going to see here, you might have already done this, but you're going to see that there's a section about study without, let's find this here, study without a permit. So there's some situations where no permit is required. There's some situations as well where you're able to apply under the issuance, you're able to apply within Canada, right? So if you're going to apply within Canada, make sure that you meet one of the conditions. Some cases you can apply at the border if you're a national of the United States. In some other cases, you're going to have, what is wrong with my screen? What is going on? That is so weird. All right, well, listen. There we go. In some cases, you can apply within Canada. And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find this. So you can apply after entering Canada if you meet one of these conditions, right? So generally speaking, you cannot apply within Canada, but if you already hold a study permit, if you hold a work permit, your case you're on a visitor visa, so you're a spouse to one of the individuals, if you're a family member, right, to one of these individuals, you may be able to apply from inside Canada. But generally speaking, IRCC wants you to apply from outside Canada. You can apply at the border. Here are the individuals who may apply when entering Canada, right? So again, if you're a national permanent resident of the United States, Greenland, or Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. So very restricted for the study permit. So my advice to you, Cyril, is do you need a study permit for this course, right? For some exemptions, for short courses, you may not need a study permit. So take a look online. Feel free to book a consult to speak to me about that as well. And then if you're currently inside Canada, you don't want to leave, you're going to have to look at, if you need a study permit and you want to do it from inside Canada, you have to take a look here to see whether or not you can actually apply from within Canada. So we'll just leave it at that. But those are your options. All right, let's get to a more recent question. Someone who just posted question. Shuka says, can you work as a student when you study full-time in a part-time study program? So that's actually going to be on your study permit for any conditions that you may have about the working, right? So I don't know about your specific case, but generally speaking, you have to be studying full-time to be able to work. So take a look at your study program. You can also book a consult with me to talk more about your specific case. But again, the general rule is you need to be studying full-time to be able to work. Your study permit at the very bottom is going to have more conditions, right? So if it says you can't work, well, listen, you can't work, right? If it says you can work, but now you switch to part-time, as I mentioned, you can only work if you're part-time. If you're full-time, if you're studying full-time, you can only work if you're studying full-time. All right, Joe has a question saying, hi, Cédric, just received a request for the EMM 5669 after AOR and Biometric. Is it okay to add more information about our studies before university or college, even if it was not mentioned at the first submission? So Joe, fantastic question, right? Read the question very carefully, right? Are we talking about, are we going back here to before the age of 18? Are we going back here to more than 10 years, right? So read the question very carefully and look at what you previously provided to authorities. And in fact, I encourage you to provide always the most current and accurate information. So if you notice a mistake, right, you notice that, listen, oh, wow, I just forgot to update this. I forgot to, I forgot this university program in this last form. I strongly encourage you to disclose it and explain, in a letter of explanation, of note, I forgot to mention this in the application. It was a mistake, or I previously mentioned it. I provided supporting documents, but I forgot to indicate in this question, right? But Joe, I definitely recommend that when you provide information to immigration authorities, even if you've already provided incomplete information, to always provide complete information. Ado says, no answer on Facebook. Please read questions on Facebook. Ado, I'm sorry. It's a little bit limited with the program that I'm using in terms of getting questions from Facebook. But let's go take a look. Ado, if I can find your question on Facebook. Just give me a moment here. I am working to get a better program to be able to link it to Facebook. Let's go take a look here. Are you on the Express Entry Law group, or are you joining on the whole immigration page? We have a few pages. So listen, I'm looking right now at our Express Entry Law group. I don't see any questions on that. You must be joining us on another platform. Just let me know where you're joining me from. I'll try to find your question. If not, just please re-ask it. All right, we have Rose saying, is it possible for a 40-year-old undocumented immigrant from the United States to obtain a Canadian student visa, thinking of pursuing a bachelor's degree at a U.S. university, transfer within a year? I think, Rose, you're going to have difficulty to demonstrate that you have a temporary intent coming to Canada. They're going to be looking at whether or not you're going to return to your country of nationality at the end of your studies. And in your case, if you're undocumented in the United States, the question would be, why? Why are you undocumented in the United States? And can you prove to Canadian authorities that you're going to return to your country at the end of your stay? So there's no bar on being documented or undocumented, but generally speaking, returning at the end of your stay is going to be a requirement of your study permit. And if you've been undocumented and have not been respecting immigration rules, well, they might just deny you because of that, because of your previous immigration non-compliance, even in the United States. So you can apply to it, but I think you're going to face some challenges in applying. Again, I don't know your whole situation, Rose. This is just general information. You can go ahead and apply. You're not going to be inadmissible to applying. You might just be found, you might just reject it because you don't meet the conditions of to get the study permit. All right, let's continue going. We're taking a question that was asked moments ago. So we have Vivek saying, hi, Cédric, we recently moved to a new country. Oh, I forgot to take all the previous questions. I forgot to copy paste the previous questions. In any event, I'll go through the video. Let's continue our good habits here. All right, Vivek says, we recently moved to a new country. We had applied for a TRV in our previous country of residence, which hadn't been processed in 6 months. Can we ask IRCC to move it to a new country? Yeah, Vivek, in fact, that's what I recommend you do. So you can actually make a web form, and you're going to be using the web form for outside Canada. So the web form for outside Canada is going to allow you to reach out directly to the office. We'll just load it up here. So the contact online, and here you can actually select the visa office. Right? So yes, it's outside Canada. So you can select your previous office. Let's say it's in Singapore. And then you can write a web form directly to the Singapore office to let them know to transfer your application. In fact, this is what they recommend you do, right? It says right here to wish to report an important change in your application, such as change in address. So do a web form, contact them. That's what you need to do. Ibrahim says a second question saying, about his express entry application saying, my wife is the primary applicant. Again, sorry, just take a note of the question here. My wife is the primary applicant to move for the SGP for work for the same company. Does it matter if we do landing coming as if we had originally applied from DXB? So you applied coming from Singapore if we had originally applied for moving for Singapore for work for the same company. Does it matter if we land coming? So sorry, so you moved countries while your application was pending. Whether how you get to Canada has no impact, but when you get your confirmation of permanent residence, there's going to be a date on there, an expiry date. They don't extend that date, so make sure you come to Canada. Again, as I mentioned in the previous question, update your address. You have to update your address, so please do so with IRCC. Again, this is just general legal information. General information. I don't know what's going on in Singapore. I don't know why you moved addresses. You previously updated them. Again, just general information. As I mentioned moments ago, my name is Cédric Marin. I'm part of Holt Immigration Law. I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer. I telework abroad. You can learn more about us on our team and scroll down. You can learn about, where the amount of years that I studied for my civil law, my common law, my master's of law. I previously worked for the government of Canada. I previously worked for the United Nations. Previously worked at the federal courts, a lot of experience with immigration law. If you'd like to speak with me in French or English, it'd be my pleasure. At the very top, click on speak to a lawyer. All right, let's continue with our next questions here. Let's find one. So Ado, thank you for reposting your question saying, I need information, brother. I do have a master's in science and medical and mechanical engineering and second year PhD student. Do I have more than 3 years of experience working in university as a senior lecturer? Need advice. So I'd love to help you out. You can go ahead and book a consult with me and we can talk about this, about whether or not you have 3 years of work experience for your foreign work experience, and we can definitely assist you with your express entry application. To answer your question, let's take a look here for the eligibility, right? So the very first thing you need to do is actually be eligible for express entry. And there's going to be a minimum skilled requirement. So my question for you is, do you have at least 1 year of continuous work experience, right? You might have 3 years of work experience, but were there breaks because of your master's, because of your experience? My very first question for you is, do you have at least 1 year continuous? And then as a university as a senior lecturer, it's most likely going to be a NOC A or NOC B, but do take a closer look at that to find your correct NOC, but it does have to be in the proper NOC, right? So in the last 10 years, right? So you've been in school for quite a bit. I hope it's also within the last 10 years. The first question I'd ask you is it continuous, right? If you have 10 months and you went back to school, it's not continuous. Federal skilled workers, it's super important that it has to be continuous, right? The second question that we need to determine is, once we do have this, we need to take a look at the ministerial instructions to see whether or not, just trying to pull them up here, ministerial instructions to see if it qualifies for points, right? So let's go take a look. And generally speaking, a big difference between Canadian experience class and federal skilled workers is that federal skilled workers, so foreign work experience, you are able to do it at the same time of doing full-time studies, right? So let's go take a look here. Foreign work experience. It's going to bring us all the way here at the bottom. And here we're talking about adaptability points and combination points. So let's take a look here for the requirements for foreign work experience. So here they talk about the NOC code, right? The lead statement and the occupational group. We talk a lot about this. Let's go take a look here. Continuing here, so work in excess. So you'll see here that there are requirements that have to do with foreign work experience of being in a NOC OA or B, which we've talked about. Consists of full-time work experience or the equivalent with one or more employers, right? So that's fine. Is acquired within the last 10 years. We talked about that as well. And at the university, you're actually paid wages or commission, right, for your work. Now you'll see here there's no restrictions on the full-time study like there is for the Canadian experience class. But they only count 30 hours a week. You're able to add up your part-time hours, but again, it has to be continuous for the eligibility. So I'd love to speak with you, book a consult, and we'd love to also help you with your express entry application. All right. It is continuous work experience, still working there, but PhD student. Yeah, so I do, as I mentioned, one of the big difference for Canadian experience class and federal skilled workers. Again, this is general information. It's not legal advice. I don't know all the specifics, but one of the big difference is for the federal skilled workers, there's no requirement, right? There isn't that bar like the Canadian experience class where they don't consider the full-time studies. In other words, federal skilled worker, foreign work experience, you are able to obtain it at the same time that you were a student. That's a big, big difference between both of them. Oh, here's your question. So he says, my question is, do I have to wait until I graduate from a PhD program, or can I apply now using my Master's in Science diploma? You can apply now with your Master's of Science. You might get more points if you have the PhD, but if you meet the eligibility, right, you are able to apply. You would be able to get your educational credential assessments. I'm assuming that this is education outside of Canada, right? So you're going to get your master's, get your ECA for your master's, and it's going to tell you what the Canadian equivalency is. Do your language test, and you can definitely apply. And once you graduate from your PhD, then you can actually get more points for your education, right? So again, if you can apply right now, there's no problem. You can be a student, there's really no problem. But you need to meet the eligibility, right? And as I'm sure you know, there's a minimum points that you have to get for draws. So the next draw, we expect it to happen next week. We expect it to happen on Wednesday, October 26th. And we can see here that the last draw was a score of about 500. So take a look at the CRS calculator. Oops. Is this no, that's not the CRS calculator here. And answer these questions. Right? There's going to be a question on education. I might have already scrolled past it. Yeah, so there's a question on education. So you are able to apply. Oops, it just changed on me, but you are able to apply with your master's. And then if you need more points once you get your PhD, absolutely. But again, eligibility is going to be super important for you. All right. Let's pick just a question at random. We have so many questions. Tismat. All right, Tismat, if you're still with us, sorry it took so long to get to your question. Again, we're not necessarily taking it in order. We're taking some that I already asked. We're taking some new questions. We're taking some that can be applicable to most people. All right, let's get right to it. Is it worth setting up an express entry profile if you're over 40, but have a master's degree, good language skills and test scores, and work in a skill level A occupation? So excellent question. So Tismat, as you know, and as a lot of you may know, for express entry, you get points based on your age. And when you're at 40 years old, I think that's actually the cutoff for the points for your age. Either that or you're getting really close to it. Let's just go take a quick look here for age. Yeah, so at 40, you're going to receive 45 points. 45, you're going to get 0. So that's quite important. There's some rules that apply with an invitation to applies and birthdays and so on. But all to say is that yes, it makes sense to apply for express entry now for a few reasons. First, even if your CRS score is going to be a little bit lower than the cutoff itself, you need to keep in mind that coming up in November and December and throughout the year, we expect a lot of changes to the way that the minister is going to send out invitations to apply. So they're going to be doing occupation-specific draws. So if your occupation is needed inside of Ontario and you need your occupation, they're going to take everyone, regardless of the CRS score, or even with a lower CRS score who has this occupation. So we are expecting occupation-specific draws. Tismat, you might be also able to get combination points that you might not necessarily be aware of. So if you take a look here at the bottom, we have points for additional factors. In this, for example, if you have an LMIA, so you get a job offer, you can get an additional 50 points. Or if you also have a provincial nominee, you can get up to 600 points, right? So as you make your express entry profile, if you have a nomination from a province, you would be able to get 600 points for it. So let's take a few steps back, right? So you might be able to qualify with your CRS score because you sound like you have a great profile. If not, there might be the occupation-specific draws or region-specific draws of where you want to go. And then the third option is try to improve your CRS score. Look at PNPs, look at getting a job offer, look at maybe increasing your language test. You have a 9 in every skill to get additional points. So it does make sense, especially with what we're seeing and what's going to be happening in the next 6 months to a year. Obviously, we'd love to meet with you, love to talk more about how we can help you to properly prepare an application for express entry. We can also meet and talk more specifics about whether or not it makes sense in your specific situation. So if you're interested, head over to our website, Whole Earth Immigration Law, at the very top, speak with a lawyer. Again, we have a whole page now on express entry and federal skilled workers and what it is and eligibility and the whole process. So do reach out if you have any questions. All right, let's get to our next question here. Let's just try to find our next question. Beatrice has a question saying, hello, Cédric. I wish to pursue a Nova Scotia provincial nominee program. Do you provide services for searching employment, as that is one requirement that is difficult to meet? So we do not offer job seeking services. We are Canadian immigration lawyers, and so we focus on properly preparing applications. We focus on strategies to immigrate to Canada. We focus on writing letters of explanation, overturning refusals. That's our expertise. We're licensed to do that. We have a lot of experience helping literally thousands of individuals doing that. So we don't search for employments. And I just want to let you know that if someone is promising you employment in exchange of money, or promising you a job if you pay them for the LMIA, or, I'll guarantee you, Beatrice, I'll find you a job, just transfer $15,000 to this account, it is illegal. It is not allowed to do that, to pay someone for a job. This being said, you are able to look on your own, right? There's the jobs.gc.ca to look for jobs, whether it's government jobs, whether it's provincial jobs, whether it's jobs with employers. But you can also reach out. Nova Scotia does have a whole resource collection to be able to speak and find a job. But just be very wary of of others who are trying to sell you job offers, because it is illegal, and I strongly encourage you to do it properly, which is applying for a job. All right, let's look for our next question. Let's get right to it. So Anne says, hi, I have an application number. Can I apply for the bridge work permit? My permit will expire next year and it's closed permit. Thank you so much. Hi, Anne. So my question for you, do you actually have an application or have you only created a profile, right? A lot of individuals, not a lot of individuals, but some individuals, as soon as they create their profile, they think that they've applied for express entry. That is not the case. That is not the case. If you create a profile, you have not applied for express entry. You need an invitation to apply, and then you're going to submit your application, right, to the EAPR. You're going to provide all the supporting documents and apply. So in your case, if you've actually applied to express entry, so created the profile, got the ITA, and now applied for express entry, let's go take a look at the requirements for bridging open work permit. This means that when your express entry application is being processed, the IRCC gives you an open work permit. All right, let's take a look here. So here you've applied for permanent residence using express entry. Again, I don't really know a lot about your situation. This is just legal information, right? So make a lot of assumptions. Again, if you want me to actually look at your situation, your documents, and assist you, obviously my pleasure, lots of experience with this. All right, so you applied for permanent residence using express entry. You submitted your application for permanent residence. You've actually applied, right? It's not just a profile. You have your EAPR is in. Sorry, just taking note of the question here. All right, let's go take a look. So you applied for express entry, and here is what you're eligible. So just having an application number on its face is not going to be sufficient to obtain the bridging open work permit, right? So you have to live in Canada, outside Quebec, and intend to live outside Quebec. First requirement, you need to have one of the following, right? You need to be the principal applicant on your permanent residence application. And this is probably the most important part. If you have just a letter that says you applied for express entry or you applied for permanent residence, it's not the same thing as pass the completeness check. You need to pass the completeness check. This can take place anywhere from 3 to 6 months to 12 months, depending on your application, your country, express entry program, and whatnot. But you need to pass the completeness check. When you submit your APR, it's not sufficient to make the application for a bridging open work permit. And here we go. I just talked about this. Submitting a profile to the pool is not the same as applying for permanent residence. Make sure you understand how express entry works. Very common mistake. And then have your acknowledgement of receipt letter, right? So you're going to submit your application, most likely get your acknowledgement of receipt soon. And then the next step is going to be really passing the completeness check. It's going to be in your application. You're going to see it updated. It's going to say eligibility. You've passed it. Great. Now you apply for the bridging open work permit, right? So if you're not eligible, you can't apply. So there we have it. So no, and I'm very sorry, but based on what you told me, again, just general information, look at the requirements, but no, having an application number is not sufficient for this to work. Ibrahim says, does one need to include IELTS reports in education upload section during EAPR? Great question, Ibrahim. You have to provide the number and the certificate number and the PIN, right? So they want the actual, they want the, on the IELTS, you're going to have like a certificate number and PIN. So you do have to provide that. If you take a look here at the completeness check, there's no requirement. Oh, I'm not sure what's happening to my window here. In any event, here we go. There's no requirements for the language tests. So if we take a look here at the completeness check, so the field should be used to provide documents to support a claim. Oh no, this is definitely not what we're talking about. Does it even mention it? I thought there was a part that says that they may request it. Yeah, so listen, there might be another page. Listen, I don't have the specific IRCC page, but what they're going to ask you to do is just to provide the certificate number, the PIN in your profile. And what's good habit is inside the client information, you can also include it as well. To include the copy, but it's not going to generate an automatic slot to upload it. They want when you took the test, they want general information on the test, but you don't have to provide the certificate. Hence why you don't see a little box there for the express entry. All right, Sylvester, let's get to your question. I have applied for the visitor visa. I'm waiting since 4 months now to hear from IRCC regarding my application. Do you have any insights on the wait time for visitor visas? Unfortunately, Sylvester, the way that IRCC breaks down the information for visas, I don't think it's actually by country. So, oh, it is by country. All right, so let's say a country here, Sylvester, just at random. I don't know if it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be processing times for smaller countries. Let's take South Korea here. All right, so right now in South Korea, it's taking 93 days. And this does not include time where you have to get your biometrics, send an application, and so on. So take a look here at the delay to see how long it's taking. Generally speaking, IRCC is ramping up the processing, which means they're trying to get more and more processing for these types of applications, but they're focusing on economic immigration. And Sylvester, if you submitted your visitor visa and now something has changed, right? So you submit a visitor visa application to go to a wedding or to go to a graduation or whatnot, and that has passed, right? Because of the processing, you might want to consider making a web form and updating your visa application, explaining to IRCC that, yes, the wedding has passed because processing times, but now you want to go for the, for whatever reason to Canada, whether it's a religious reason, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a funeral, whether it's a graduation, right? You have another reason to come to Canada. It might just be a visit. You might just be visiting family, right? But listen, that's a little tip that we have for you. All right. Tanej says, is there any new PR plan coming until February? Listen, Tanej, if I could predict the future, right, I'd have 1 million views on this YouTube channel, right? That's not the case, unfortunately. What we do know is that the Parliament in Canada is back in session for a few weeks now. This means new laws, regulations, lots of things happening in cabinet, right? We do expect a lot of changes, right? We know that the tier is changing, and the knock codes are changing, and this is going to be focused in our newsletter that I'm going to send out in the next 2 or 3 days. Go onto our website and subscribe to the newsletter all the way at the very bottom. But in our newsletter, we're asking our lawyers, how can you prepare for the new knocks? How can you prepare for the tier? So that's going to be a change. We also expect occupation-specific changes. We expect lots of changes, but I don't think we're waiting necessarily for a specific PR program. But listen, we're going to be having live YouTube announcements, having newsletters coming out. Stay tuned, but I'm not aware of any big PR program. Mark did a key takeaways on the TR to PRs on our YouTube channels where they announced the plan. You can read it yourself. It's like a 100-page document. We have summaries on our websites. All right. Salam says, can you please answer my question above? It's in Salam. Let's try to find it. Salam. How can I request a reconsideration for a study permit application? No details in refusal letter about the officer who rejected my application. All right, so that's one question. I think you have a second question, Salam. Hi, sir. Thank you for your efforts. I've applied for a study permit for the second time. The reason was that I have no assets. Also, no assets, although I have shown that I have a fully funded scholarship. Okay, how do you request reconsideration? Do we have 2 Salams? We don't. Okay, it's just multiple questions. All right, well, let's take a look at it. So I actually have a whole blog, which I suggest that you take a look at. Take a look here, legal help. Let's go take a look. Oh, sorry, legal fees. Sorry, let's go to here to legal help, and let's go reconsideration request. So take a look. Salam, I wrote a step-by-step blog about how to make your own reconsideration request. So take all the documents you have, consider whether or not you want to do an ATIP request, and then you're going to do a third step is to actually write the reconsideration request. So in your case, you might believe there's a factual error, right? You provided proof of a full scholarship, but yet they rejected it because of lack of assets. And then take a look here at the very bottom. You're going to be submitting the application by web form. There's an inside Canada, there's an outside Canada web form. I think this is going to link to the inside Canada web form, but if you're outside Canada for the study permit, you're going to use the outside Canada web form, which looks a little bit different. But you're going to submit it. You're going to explain, what you believe is an error, and you're going to submit it by web form. You're going to provide your additional information. So generally speaking, what you need to know about a web form is that it's a very informal process. The visa officers can look at it. They can right now, within a day, they can look at it in 2 months. You're really asking the officer to take another look at your application. So you might consider reapplying. You might also consider making a judicial review of the application. But you do need to have those minimum funds in addition to your tuition. So you have fully funded scholarship that pays for the tuition. You still need to have $10,000 depending on your family size to have the study permit, right? So the fully funded scholarship is one thing, but really having the sufficient funds to support your stay inside Canada and leave Canada is something else, right? So my question for you, did you have proof of at least $10,000, right? Or did you have proof that you're going to meet the minimum funds to support yourself and your family while you're studying inside Canada, right? So the web form, take a look at our blog, like it's detailed. Like you're not going to find another 2,000 word blog post, a step-by-step guide about how to make a reconsideration request, new applications. Like we have all the information here. I'm also coming out with a YouTube video, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, about reconsiderations and whatnot. So take a look at our website, tell them about reconsideration requests. How do I ask for a study permit, although there were no details in the refusal letter about the officer who reviewed my application? So again, you're going to make the web form. You can make an access to information request for your visa notes, but it's taking like over 3 months to make these requests for the visa notes. You can reapply as well. The January term is coming up soon. You pretty much today I have to apply because you're getting really close to missing the January intake. You can also make the reconsideration at the same time. But again, submitted by web form. If you don't know the office, that's fine. If you have your UCI and whatnot, that's fine as well. All right, CC says, hi, sir. Well, FSW score decreased to 450. I really don't think so. Really don't think so. If you take a look very briefly in the last rounds, even before COVID, the rounds of invitation before COVID were still like, let's go back here to the rounds of invitation. We're still like in the 470s. We're still in COVID. COVID is really high. So look, this is before COVID, right? We're still with the 460s, 450s, 451. But listen, there's so much competition right now. There's such a big backlog. There's so many people that have such a high score, right? So you can actually calculate yourself, right? So look, add 2,700, right? So 3,500 approximately. You add another 6,000. You add 10,000. You add 20,000. You add 16,000, or I've lost track, guys. We're probably around 40 to 50,000 right now. Add another, 60,000, and then we're getting to the 450s, and they're taking 4,200 every 2 weeks. They're taking about 10,000 a month. So if no one makes another express entry application in the next 7 or 8 months, you're going to go down to 450. But express entry is opening up. We're having a lot of clients contacting us. We have a lot of people submitting express entry applications, which means that there's going to be more and more people applying. So I don't think you're going to see 450, but CC, my advice for you is going to be, okay, your language is probably the easiest way to improve your score. Do you have a 7 in every language score? Do you have a 9 in every language score? Can you get your language test up? Because you do get additional points, right? Can you get more work experience? Do you have your 3 years of foreign work experience, right? What about your education? Can you go back to school and finish that degree, finish that diploma, finish your master's, right? So there's easy ways to improve your CRS score, and there's obviously much harder ways to improve your CRS score. But take a look to see whether or not, and again, something we can chat about, CC, is how to improve your CRS score. And guys, I'm really sorry, but I have a call in about 7 minutes, so I have to run to the call. Thankfully, I prepared before, but I do want to be fresh and have the time to answer all the questions. But take a look at our website. We're Whole Immigration Law. We have express entry courses and master classes coming up. So take a look at the comments below. Take a look at the description to learn more about our courses that are coming up. Subscribe to our newsletter. As I mentioned, our new one is going to talk about NOC codes and changes that are coming in November. If you'd like to speak with me, go ahead and speak with a lawyer. You can see the different areas I focus on. So I do focus on express entry, study permits, work permits, and litigation. So refusals, reconsideration, right? This is something really that, I worked at the federal court. I provided advice to judges on refused applications. It's really my specialty is overcoming rejections in federal court work. As I mentioned earlier, I do telework from abroad. I'm on the Eastern European summer time zone, which means that if you're, let's say, in Tokyo, I offer more convenient times to meet with me. So I am available for those that are outside and inside Canada. If you are inside Canada, so if you are in Halifax, I'm able to meet in the morning for you. So when you're fresh as you wake up and you do your best for yourself is getting your immigration application well prepared. So do take a look at our website. I'd love to speak with you. And listen, thank you so much for all the questions, guys, and your support. Do join us. Alicia and Mark have another live Q&A in about, I think, 5 or 6 hours. They're going to do their live Q&A. So Mark and Alicia, the tag team, and then I'm back Tuesday, 6:30 Eastern Time, Toronto, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Again, guys, thank you so much for your time. I am Hoth Immigration Law. You can check out our website. This is going to conclude today's live Q&A. Again, thank you so much for joining me. Join us again on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Bye, guys.